So my presentation today, the reason why I chose this topic is because PISA is something that it's a test that all schools, all students 15 years old sit for. Are we on? Yeah. Sorry. So the ways of working of our session today, phones on silent, please. Be present. What is learned here leaves here. Listen and understand with a positive mindset and save questions till the end. So the procedure. The reason why I chose this presentation is because of this document. I don't know if it's familiar to you. This is taken from the reading supplement of the framework. And there are two sentences that I would like to pinpoint here. This page is about reading literacy. And the UAE vision stipulates that we, as educators, have to make reading a daily habit. This is quoted from the framework. And to help students develop higher order thinking skills, including inference, interpretation, and integration of information. From those two sentences, we in Khaleej National School derived our vision and our mission and the steps that we're going to follow in order to raise students' PISA scores. Actually, 2 years ago when our students sat for PISA, their scores were low, and we managed in a year and a half to raise students' PISA scores by 26 points after the steps that I'll be sharing with you and what we did. So before we move on, I don't know if, sorry. From that document again, I derived my objectives, which is what we will be discussing today. One, to define literacy and its types and aspects. To justify how literacy is an integral element of human development. And the last and most important objective, which is to evaluate our current teaching approaches of English language arts, and I'll be talking about other disciplines as well, and see, are they really relevant and related and preparing our students to meet the national agenda requirements or not. We're going to start with the definition of literacy and its evolution, relation between literacy and human development, teaching strategies and educational programs and literacy development, our school experience, and questions. So before we start, I would like to share this QR code with you. Please scan it with your mobile phones. It's on Padlet. If you can't access through the QR code, you can just go to that link. Padlet, Shaima, can you please pass to the back? Yes, can you please pass to the back? And let's together brainstorm how much we know about literacy. This is a program that I use with my students in the class, and it makes classes interactive. Can you please pass the QR code? You can scan it on your phones, go to padlet.com and scan that, or you can just go to the link right away. Sorry, take another one, it's fine. Can you please, oh, you got one? What about, yes. Oh, extra? Okay. So I would like to call this paint, pair, and post. Oh, what? So I'll be seeing your answers popping here. I'll give you 1 minute to think, 1 minute to pair, and 1 minute to post. Yes. Hi, Lee. Who's Lee? Yes. Yes. You have to go to Padlet and scan the code. To what? You have to go to Padlet and scan the code. What is Padlet? Padlet.com. Can you open Safari, please? Safari. I'll help you through Safari. Internet. Safari. Yes. There. Yes. I'll just write the link for you. I don't think you're connected. .com. Shaima. Let me just, oh, there, padlet.com, Shayla, 8. It's fine. Literacy. And you're in. Welcome to my Padlet. Yes. That's the question. Literacy and the national agenda. What is literacy? One more minute. You can go to the link padlet.com. Yes, you can. You have to install the application, but you can just go through Safari right away, or the Internet Explorer. So we will stop. Can you please read what you wrote? The people. I'm sorry, I can't recall the names. Please. Who's you? Heart. No one. No comment. Yes. Application of a combination? Yes.
Application of a combination of skills such as reading skills, decoding comprehension, oral presentation, and a range of written skills.
Yes, yes, absolutely correct. Yes, carry on please. Who else? It's the ability to read and write, to infer and to compare, to know your rights and do the right thing. Thank you very much for sharing this. That's a point that we will be going back to it later. The ability to read and understand, the ability to read and write, the ability to express thoughts. So the majority of you agree that literacy is the ability to read and write. That's only one part of literacy, actually. According to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, the definition that you shared is absolutely correct. Literacy is the ability to read and write. It also means the competence of knowledge in a specific area. However, this definition, I'm sorry to say, is outdated now. With the global demands and the technological exposition that we have and the culture diversity, UNESCO has developed a new definition of literacy called the functional literacy. So I would like to turn and talk to your partner and try to come up with a definition of functional literacy. And how is it different from the literacy that we know, which you just said, ability to read and write? Can you please talk to your partner? What is functional literacy? Ahmed, you compare with her? Yes. What is functional literacy? 30 seconds. Ten seconds. Time. Who would like to share what functional literacy is?
It's the ability to function within society, to be able to use all of the things around you.
What are all of the things?
Like, for example, to be able to access the internet, to find out what time the bus is coming, to go to find the bus stop, to use maps, to all of these things.
Yes, thank you very much. So, I will be sharing with you, according to UNESCO definition of literacy in 1978, functional literacy is the ability to understand, interpret, create, communicate, and compute information. Does this look familiar? Does this look similar to what I showed you earlier? Those requirements are actually the same that are in the framework to higher order thinking, inference, interpretation, and through that the user of a language or the literate person can actually understand or use the language to understand, interpret, create, communicate, and compute information. And this is our role as educators. So more on literacy. Literacy is transformative, which means, as the gentleman said, it takes other forms of expression. It's not only the ability to read and write, it is beyond that. Students have to use other forms of expression based from literacy in order to help in the community, in order to be an integral member of the society. Literacy is a continuum of skills. So it starts with the early years with the introduction of language arts and language skills like orthography, syntax, semantics, morphology, phonology, and it builds up through high school. It goes beyond that to graduate life and career as well. So what are the forms of literacy? Does literacy only take one form, or there are forms of literacy? As educators, I want you to think how or what are the forms of literacy that you implement with your students in classes? Can you please share that on sticky notes? Can you take one and pass, please? I'll take some. Yes. Mr. Ahmed? Mais, can you please take one and pass? What are the forms of literacy? Be imaginative, they are many. You may turn and talk. $30 seconds. What are the forms of literacy? How many did you find? Emotional literacy, okay. I guess this is emotional intelligence?
Yes, the part which is developing.
Okay,
literacy.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, how many did you find?
They're discussing.
Okay,
Understanding.
okay. Stories, okay, that's part of foundational literacy, sorry. Yes, the nerds here, the two nerds here.
We've just got a few ideas. Written form, reading, phonics linking
Yes,
to decoding
yes,
and reading,
absolutely.
comprehension, inference blending,
Yes.
different types of written form, speaking and listening.
I need you to be more open.
Yeah.
This all goes under foundational literacy, which is again the ability to read and write. It goes beyond that.
Okay.
Okay, time. I would like to start, before I show you the forms of literacy, I would like to start by saying that if you think a person who has a high level of literacy is a person who's able to read and write, I'm sorry to say that this person in our world is considered illiterate. There are so many demands and they require different forms of literacies. So let's start by this. We have digital literacy, which is all around us now. The QR code that I just gave you now is part of the digital literacy. You have to know how to use a QR code. You will be able to make a lot of purchases. You will be able to access a lot of information. It's all around us. And you know what? Our students are really good at this. And they are even better than we are. However, we should include should direct their mastery of digital literacy into directions that help them improve and help their community as well. We actually incorporate literacy to ICT, and we encourage students to create projects that are including the usage of computers and applications and videos and so on. Another kind of literacy is media literacy. Are you media literate? Like, can you use the media? Can you broadcast something? Can our students broadcast something? Can they create movies? This is media literacy. And as I'm talking to you about the types or forms of literacy, I want you to think of how you, as educators, can include this in your curriculum. It's not only about reading and writing anymore. Visual literacy. Photography. Why not a project about photography? Why not something that includes the visuals, all kinds of visuals? Data literacy, and this is very important. Our students and our children nowadays should be able to interpret data. This will not only help them pass PISA and pass TIMSS, this is going to help them in our lives in general. So one thing that we did in my school is that we are an American curriculum school. So our students sit for MAP and sit for PISA. So we actually have one-on-one meetings with them, and we show them their MAP scores. And we sit with them and we have them like analyze their scores and come up with an action plan, and we set targets for them and we follow up on that. One thing that we did in order to make data accessible to students, outside every class, we posted students' MAP scores and students' PISA scores. And whenever the students finish their test and take their scores, they would just go out and with a marker they would highlight on the graph whether they increased or they decreased. And they would set a target on that wall. So wherever they go, you would find them standing and discussing, oh, I met my target this time, I'm 10 points below, I'm 10 points above. This is something that makes, it's very important, students and their ability to handle data. Moving on to game literacy, gamification, or a gamification, which is to turn things to game. We have children who make millions, and in the previous session, the presenter was talking about students who are YouTubers, or children who are YouTubers or pro gamers. The only thing they do is that they play on YouTube and they make videos. So I see my kids, my friends, and my kids' friends, they would watch these videos for hours. Turning things or turning learning to a game is actually enjoyable. You would be helping those students who are professional at creating games, and you would be helping other students to make learning fun. So what we were thinking next year in our school is that we are going to turn PISA-style questions in a game form. PISA, as like the nature of PISA questions are challenging and confusing and misleading to students. I will be showing you samples as we proceed. So why not try to change them or turn them to a game? You can do that with the help of the IT department as well. More literacies. Health and financial literacy. Are our children, like health-wise, are they literate? With the dangers of obesity, diabetes, cancer, and all these things, how health literate are our children? Do they know how to eat? Do they have like a certain diet, lifestyle? Financially, our students and our children know how to spend money. They don't know how to control their finances. So this is something that we should include through financial literacy courses at school. Civic and ethical literacy. Are our students aware of their rights as citizens? Do they know when to vote? Do they know what they should do and they shouldn't do? Do they know how to help their country? This is part of literacy as well. News literacy. Raise your arm if you have a child or if you have students, by show of hand, who read the news. 2 out of, let's say, 30 people. Yes, okay, so this is part. I have, as a teacher and an educator, to impose the news to them. I have to have them read the news, maybe read and create something, maybe read and act something, maybe read and present. They have to see all these forms of literacy at school and outside school. More on literacy, coding. Coding is the new black, what do I say? Coding is very important. It is the base of everything technologically going on in our world now. We have decided to make coding a core subject in our school next year. Our application, like any application that you use, like Uber, for example, it starts by someone who coded that. So coding and computation literacy is very important, and every single student should know how to code. And the last one, and by last I don't mean it's the least important, is foundation literacy, which is the ability to read and write. From that, all the other forms of literacy branch. Now, after we talked about the forms of literacy, I want you to pause and reflect. How literate are you now? What are the forms of literacy that you possess? You may share if you want. Yes?
I'll probably add to that this number 11.
11? What is it? You want to add to that list? Yes, please.
And I think, with all these things and all of that, to ensure we don't have children who are kind of robotized, is that emotional intelligence is vital. Literacy is vital. which is underpinned by developing emotional intelligence. I think that ability to know your feelings, to express your feelings,
Yes.
that literacy, I think underpins that.
I'm definitely adding it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, moving on to our second objective, which is the relation between literacy and human development. What happens if our children have high level of literacy? First of all, self-esteem and empowerment. If I can express myself in different forms of literacy as a child, as a teenager, I will be more self-confident and I will be empowered to make an impact, a positive impact on myself and on others and the community as well. And I'm sure you have such examples in each of your schools. There is always the student or those groups who have high levels of literacy, and you would see they are very effective in the school. If I have high level of literacy, I would be culturally developed. The whole community would be developed. I can challenge misconceptions. I can actually reinforce cultural diversity and racism, and I will be more proactive and receptive to peace and democracy. If I or my children have high levels of literacy, they will improve their society. Gender equality, better education, better health, all of which at the end results in a better economy and a better country. So literacy is like really connected to human development. We move on to the last objective, which is how valid are our teaching approaches of English language arts, math and science, how valid are they into preparing students to PISA questions? As you may see, these are PISA questions. From the look of it here, I want you to check that question. What do you think is this under? English, maths, or science?
English.
That's the final answer? Math. This is an English question. Thank you. But from the look of it, it does not only require English knowledge. It requires students' interpretation of location in order to answer that question. And if you check that one with a lot of numbers, this is actually under reading. Yes, to shock you even more, and I don't mean to shock you, if you check that question with a lot of graphs, it is under science. And that question with a lot of words and paragraphs is under math. Now, after you see these questions, how do you think our students are ready to handle such questions that are completely integrated? Once, 2 years ago, when our students sat for PISA, one of the students came out, and of course you know PISA, it's English, math, and science, right? One of the students came out and said, you know, miss, I am very happy. There were no math questions in the test. Do you know what that means? They weren't able to find out that math is embedded in reading and science is embedded in math and reading is embedded. So when we checked that questions a year and a half ago, we had to sit together and reflect on these questions. And from these questions, we came up with an action plan that we implemented for a year and a half on how we are going to improve students' literacy. So the first question, I need you to take these questions back to your schools and hold meetings and try to answer these questions, because believe me, they will help you big time. The first question is, do we teach with the purpose of improving literacy? And by literacy, I mean the literacy forms that I've shown you earlier. What is our purpose? For students to read, comprehend, memorize, answer content questions, and that's it. If you're doing that, believe me, your students are not scoring in PISA. And that's the national agenda we're talking about. It's a do or die. What motivates learners to acquire literacy skills? So in order to answer that question, we try to create an incentive system and motivation system that all stems from reading. You read, you're going on a trip. You read, you will be acknowledged with a certificate. You read, you're going to have pizza parties. You read, we're going to have a free dress day. You read, you're going to be acknowledged in the assembly and everybody will clap for you. And it's difficult, changing mindsets. However, it is working. The next question, are we teaching enough hours of literacy skills? So when we discovered that literacy is not implemented enough, like the time is not enough in order for students to acquire those forms of literacy, we asked for extra periods in English. And we asked the other departments to just get on board with us. So science team, we need you to include literacy in your department. We need you to include reading chunks in your assessments. Math team, you have to do that as well. What are the online resources that we can use and for students to use daily at home? Can we include literacy in art? Can we include literacy in music? Can students read and draw? Can students read and play music? So we are in the process of embedding literacy in all disciplines because they are there, as you saw in the previous PISA questions. And the last question, do learners have the right or effective literacy reading programs? What can we offer students? We have different kinds of learners of different abilities. So how can we make reading and literacy accessible to all? In your classes, you have a student who can actually read very well and can access that and can produce, and you have a student who is struggling. What can you offer that student as an educator to make reading accessible? He's going to sit for PISA when he's 15. When we reflected on these questions, we came up with this solution. And I included the first one because if you don't have that one, you won't be able to implement the rest of your actions. The first one is a mindset focused on improving literacy. So everybody in the school was talking literacy, our management, our staff, our students, and our parents. During parent-teacher meetings, reading. They go to the math department, reading. They go to science, reading. They go everywhere, everybody is speaking the same language. By time, students get used to it. The next point is a reading routine. So we decided to hold a reading routine at school. Students have to read every day. Students have to go to the lab to access the online reading programs. Students have to read novels. Students have to read in science. Reading is a routine that the students have to do every day at school. Reading is part of all skills and all disciplines and assessments. As I mentioned, in math, science, economy, business, all assessments, you find a chunk of reading the students have to access in order to not memorize content, to interpret, if you remember the framework, higher order thinking skills, infer, predict, and create. And another important point is that we integrated PISA-style questions and MAP-style questions in our curriculum, in lessons and assessments. When students are familiar with the questions, they stop being scary anymore. So we did something called the brain gym. It is in our classes where students see a map question or a PISA question every morning. It takes 5 to 10 minutes. But when you expose students to such questions on a daily basis, it actually helps them later on when they sit for PISA. We also differentiated for students and scaffolded to make reading accessible to them. So we included leveled readers. We invested in that, but for a higher purpose or for a higher goal. Leveled readers. Even my struggling readers in the class should be able to access, and access not for the sake of content. They would access for the sake of skills. Online reading programs. And these online reading programs, we were very selective about them because we want something that offers our students differentiation and scaffolding and relation to other disciplines as well. And I will be showing you samples now of the reading, online reading. I have people over, thank you. Of the reading resources that we're using, and I hope you like them. We also offer students a variety of teaching strategies, just like the strategies that I applied with you, using Padlet. Who's familiar with Padlet? Yes, using Padlet in the class. It makes learning very interactive. I might ask you to go back to your Padlet and answer the question, what is the meaning of literacy? So I use it in the beginning of the class and at the end of the class. We also offer students visible thinking routines, just like the pause and reflect, turn and talk, think, pair and share. All of this stimulates students' thinking, not only memorization and comprehension. Class activities and project that stems from reading. So you read to produce, whatever, to produce an art, to produce a documentary, a video, a movie, a presentation, a timeline, you have to read first. Reading is the base of every other activity or every other project. Technological improvements in the class, we have smart boards, we have touch screen boards, and we have devices, and we have, this is not an issue anymore. Opportunities to be an active member of the extrinsic and intrinsic curriculum in the school. So inside the school, the students are actually applying these forms of literacies. You hold competition, reading, story writing competition, debate competitions. You have to have students research and read. Read, research, and present that. And extracurricular activities. We offer them robotics, crafts, design, languages, Japanese, Italian, French. All these also improve students' literacy. So at the end, students were able to, these are like pictures of our students. Students were able to read and debate, read and design, read and invent. This is one of our students who invented a drone that you will be seeing in the skies of Dubai very soon. Read to spell, read to act, read to draw, and read to recite poetry. So at the end, it shows, it pays off. So what I want you to do now is, I want you to reflect on the definition of functional literacy and everything that we shared today, and spend the next 2 minutes to come up with an action plan of at least 3 points that you will go to implement in your school after the learning we had in the workshop today. Can you please? Can you please fast? Excuse me? Can you please take one and press? I hope I have enough. I'll give you 2 minutes.
We begged them at the door. We know we're late.
We begged them.
Please, she will be happy to see us.
Yeah. So happy.
She said she's not going to register our names. I said,
It's okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Did you get the?
thank you.
This paper stays with you actually. I can give you my email. Sure. Sorry? Thank you. Thank you very much. What's your school? Oh, hi. Thank you. This stays with you. This goes to your school.
Thank you.
Oh, these are extras? Okay. I said what's learned here leaves here. صح رغد؟ I prepared homework for you as well. Ten minutes. 10 minutes.
انت عم تعمل ايه؟ شفت فكره جديده هذه جلسه بالكلاس وبعدين نخلص على الكمبيوتر كل شو هلا انا بدي اذاكر شيء عشان
لقدم يس طبعا يس yes thank you yes okay. 30 seconds. I would love to hear your ideas, please. Okay, time? Yes. Let me learn from you today, if you may. Yes, miss? Yes, excuse me? Yes.
Okay. Actually, without even giving us the classwork, I just thought that as well we were doing the workshop. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought of an idea of having, let's say, 1 period session per week. That is called reading session. Okay? For that, for example, for the first week, it'll be economics. The same students, it's not an elective. They read about economics. The next period, they read about art. The third period, so it'll be a reading for different subjects in the same period.
Thank you.
And I also thought of having a reading lab in each, like a corner in each class, with 2 laptops, 2 iPads, where the students, I'm giving a class, and a student says, Miss, can I read more about this? And I'll tell her, okay, go on, read about it.
Yes, perfect. Yes, thank you. Any other ideas? No? Okay, so I'll give you, yes. Yes.
Make sure to make it a daily routine, because something that this is very important,
Yes.
whether it's related to English subject or math or science.
Yes.
That's another point, which is to implement it within the 3 subjects. And be selective with the online systems that we use for literacy. We need the ones that would serve the purpose of improving our students in PISA reading or math or whatever. We need to be really selective, and we need to choose the one that is attractive to the students, the one that would give a nice feedback or that would make kind of competition between students. They would feel it's kind of gamification. And I like the idea of having it as an intensive system.
Incentive system, yes.
Incentive system, because it's something that our students, they look forward daily. Like, Miss, if I read that book, what am I going to
Yes,
get?
yes.
What about reading books? Miss, I read, that novel, so yeah, they look at you like, yeah, then what's the next
That's an
step?
achievement.
Exactly.
Yes.
They
And
feel that they got that reward based on.
And they will be more enthusiastic to do more. Any other ideas?
One more idea.
Yes.
I like this, the reach event. So why don't we do, let's say we have a campaign, we announced this since the beginning of the year, and we will say that
Okay. 10 minutes.
at
Okay.
the end of the term, for example, we have this, we have the definition of read event. Everyone, a group of students like documentary, so they read and they come up with a documentary in the same exhibition. Another does reading for coding. So we attend let's say the output of students. What did they do with the reading?
Yes. So reading is not meant for the sake of reading it.
Exactly.
It doesn't stay here, it goes out. So I'll be sharing with you a sample of a reading resource that we use in our school. And the best thing about that, it offers the interdisciplinary connection, it offers differentiated reading, and it actually offers questions that are similar to PISA. So the students see graphs, maps, charts, chain events, and so on. So I want you to take that, and by the way, the set I'm going to give him is going to be different from the set I'll give her because it's differentiated. I just want you to have a look at this and think, how can you incorporate all kinds of literacy through a topic about sunscreen? How can we improve literacy by reading about sunscreen? So please read one, take one and pass. And I have come to the end of my presentation, and please, as you wait for the papers, can you please access whatworks.ae and fill the survey about my presentation? I hope you liked it. Thank you very much. Thank you.